guests, and welcome to IFE's one of 7 virtual educational forums. Our first speaker is someone you may not know, but he's an expert in aeronautics and aviation, in particular air cargo relating to our floral products. We all know that in today's world, our airlines are in a vulnerable state, but I think we'll all agree that the challenges of COVID have presented us with an opportunity to think differently about our business, discover new ideas, and develop new ways to operate. I have a question for you. Did you know that on September 30th, 2019, the FAA issued the record of decision granting approval to proceed with the Everglades International Airport and Perishable Cargo Center located 85 miles north of Miami? Today, we'll learn about this new perishables handling facility, all under one roof, that'll generate significant cost savings, greater labor efficiencies, and improved cold chain management for the entire floriculture industry. I want to hear more about that, don't you? If you're listening to this webinar today, you'll be one of the first to know. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Hernan Galindo, Vice President of Business Development, Everglades International Airport. Take it away, Hernan.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much. And thank you to the International Floriculture Expo for this invitation and the opportunity to share with you this exciting project that we've been working for almost now for 9 years. And the first thing I want to say is I hope that everyone is well and that under the circumstances that your business is recovering as well as can be. I want to I know you have some background on me, but just add a few things. I've been all my life for the past 46 years involved in the aviation and logistics. I started my career with Avianca for 11 years, and I was there for 11 years. And during that time, I was involved in various significant projects in the company. I held very senior positions at Avianca. And I left Avianca in end of 85, and in 86 I came back to the US and got involved completely in the air cargo and specifically with the floral part. At that time, the group I was involved with called Floral, I was one of the founders. We introduced the 747 freighter into Latin America and into Colombia. And it was very important, very transformative for the industry because it provided enormous capacity and it kept the rates down from there on. So I've been involved in that, and during that process, of course, I had the opportunity to work with some of the most important and distinguished companies, importers, wholesalers, and in many of those I developed very good personal relationships with them that have been very good for us in this process because I've kept those relationships all of these years. And I know you have, we're going to go through a presentation here, and I'm sure you're going to have a print copy of that. But before that, I want to give everyone a bit of the background of Everglades, which I refer to as AIA, Everglades International Airport. That started in 2012. AIA approached the FAA and applied into their airport pilot privatization program. This is a federal program that allows up to 5 airports in the United States to be privatized and be eligible for funding, and at some point when the airport is profitable to take profits out of the airport to compensate the investors, the private investors. So this is a private entity, and it's a private effort, a private development. And so they accepted us. It was a conditional acceptance back then, and they gave us a small, what I call a small list of things that we needed to complete before we went from conditional to full acceptance. And that little process that I just mentioned took us about 7 years. So we had to do a business cost analysis. So we had to show the FAA that in general terms, AIA is more efficient and better than the existing scenario, which is MIA, Miami International. So we went out to some of the most important players in the industry, among them airlines, major importers, trucking companies, logistics companies, and we asked them for cost data. And everybody was very, very supportive. Everybody shared the information that we needed. And of course, we handled that confidentially. We protected all the information, but it was very valuable, and it allowed us to show the FAA, look, this is why it's AIA can be more efficient than MIA. So that was one of them. One of the process. We also had to do an environmental assessment called the EA, which is a condensed environmental study, but that environmental study took us 5 years, and I think we had 16 different parties involved, from EPA, Florida Fish and Wildlife, USDA, and so forth and so forth, the local governments, municipalities, the state of Florida, and so forth. And I think we went through 7 or 8 different public hearings. So it was very, very, even though it was condensed, it was a very thorough environmental process. And we went, we completed that successfully. We had many concerns because AIA is located in a very sensitive area, which is the Florida Everglades area. So we did that. We also did an air traffic analysis that the FAA required, because the new flight patterns had to be developed and in a way that it wouldn't conflict with the existing airspace, which is nearby, among them Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, Miami International, being so close to all of these airports. And in that process, we found that flying to AIA, even though it's 85 miles north of Miami International, it's actually shorter for the airplane to get there than it is to Miami International. So there is a time savings there, which is important because that affects the cost, the flight costs, and eventually it should affect rates. I mean, it won't increase rates, and if anything, will have a downward effect on that. So we have that. We found that information, so we did these, and of course, the other thing that they asked us is for the basic design, which they had to approve. The FAA had to approve that. So we completed all that. It took us, like I said, 7 years, and then we went back to the FAA and say, here it is, and we filed the complete all those results of those steps that they required. And in September, as Cindy mentioned, in September 30th of 2019, the FAA approved the airport. So we went from conditional to full approval. They call it record of decision. That's their lingo to say it's approved. And the only thing that we have remaining right now with them, we've got 2 things remaining. One is we applied for grant funding, $150 million of grant funding. That comes from a fund that the FAA administered. It has nothing, this fund has no relationship to any of the recent programs that Congress has approved. This is another source of money that comes from the airline transportation tax that feeds this fund, and the FAA uses that to fund airport developments and airport improvements. So we won't know the result of that for probably 7 or 8 months. So we're in that process, and we're supplying more information. And the other part that's related to that is we have to show the FAA that there is sufficient industry support for them, the FAA, to grant that funding, and that's the process that is ongoing. This is about a $450 million project, so assuming that the FAA grants 150, we have to finance the rest, 300 million, or whatever the difference is. So that has to come in private financing that we have to get from lenders. So again, we're in that process with the industry and so forth. And again, it's an ongoing it's an ongoing process. So, so having said that, and giving you some of the background, oh, one very important thing. The reason the FAA, the underlying reason that the FAA accepted Everglades into this program, the APPP program, is that in their forecasts for Miami International, they forecast that the passenger traffic and cargo traffic will double in the next 15 or so years, between 10 and 15 years. So they foresee that Miami's going to have serious problems handling that growth, handling both things, passengers and cargo, in the current space that MIA has. Now, MIA can't expand from its boundaries because it's in the city. So there's very little, if any, that they can go, they can expand or encroach in other areas. So what normally happens in airports around the world that have had this problem, and there have been many, is that they either, they usually, well, the first thing they do is they give passenger traffic, the passenger carriers, they give them priority because of the economic impact the passenger traffic has, which is much greater than cargo. So you can imagine a passenger that arrives in Miami. Well, he first of all, he gets off the airplane, he rents a car, he goes to a hotel, he spends a week here, he goes to restaurants, he goes shopping. So it's a very strong economic stimulus. Whereas cargo arrives, it gets some handling, and it's put on a truck, and out it goes. So there's an enormous difference, and so passenger always gets a priority, and there's no reason to think that MIA is going to be any different than any other airport around the world. So the FAA sees that Miami is going to need some help, and they call it a reliever, and this is where AA comes in. And AA is not intended to replace Miami and cargo. It's intended to give MIA a solution for some of the cargo that doesn't have to be here, and they can move to another location nearby in a more efficient way. And this is what AA is all about. So, so having said that, I would like to go into the presentation, and I'm going to try to put this up here on the screen. Let me see. Okay, so I have this presentation here. So I'd like just to go over this and walk you through what this process is about. So first thing at the bottom, you see Everglades, our logo, and then you see AFPorts on the right. AFPorts is a airport management company. They currently administer 11 airports around the United States that they run, they operate. Among them, I think it's Albany, Moffett Field in California, Westchester Airport outside New York. They operate one of the terminals at Newark. One of the terminals at Newark is operated by them. Teterboro Airport, which is the largest private aviation airport in the United States for business aviation. They operate that. So they have a very strong lineage. They come from Pan Am. They used to be Pan Am, the Pan Am World Airport Services. And after Pan Am disappeared, well, it's now called AFPorts. It's owned by Goldman Sachs, and they run a very good operation. So we've selected them to operate the airport as just the airport, not the facilities. That's something else, and I'll explain that in a second. So so here are two very important milestones. September 30th, record of decision, which is, I mentioned, is the approval of the FAA. And that took us, oh my goodness, almost 9 years, I think. 8 years? 8 years to get there. And then another very important milestone was on March 2nd of this year. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, and which includes USDA APHIS, because that's run by them. Approved AIA as a port of entry. This is very significant, and it took us 3 years to get that, because we started engaging these federal agencies about 3 years ago, and this is the result of that, of the conversations with them. And they like this project because it's a very efficient project for them. Just a matter of example, in Miami, they have to inspect in 72 different locations in Miami. That includes Port of Miami as well. And but Port of Miami is probably 10, 15. The rest is MIA. So they're probably running at MIA at 40, 50 different locations to inspect cargo. Here at AIA, they're going to have everything under one roof. So from an efficiency standpoint, this is very, very good for them. And also from a safety and control standpoint, it's even more important because everything just arrives in one location. So they have more control. They like the project. And the best indicator, of course, is their designation as the port of entry. Now, that means that you can start flying there now if you want. So we're gonna start making some modifications to the existing building at Everglades. Remember that Everglades is an existing airport. It's been there since before World War II. Physically, it's about the size of Miami International. It has one 5,200 long-foot runway. So it's basically private aviation that uses it right now. But with this designation of port of entry, we're going to take one of the buildings that we have there and we're going to modify so they can operate. So that means that you're flying, you can fly there internationally from the Bahamas, anywhere you want to fly. You can go in there and get the flight cleared and be able to, and the passengers cleared as well. So that is very important designation. So, and then here's some of the things that we've been going over. This is a build to suit. This is something that I don't think has occurred in the US for perishables. This is an opportunity to take a blank piece of paper and say, this is what the industry needs, and let's design something around what the industry needs. And I want to stress something. AIA is a logistics center with an airport, a logistics center focused on perishables. And of course, flowers being the most important segment of that group. And it's not an airport having some warehouses or an airport having cargo facilities. No, this is the key to this thing. The secret to AIA is logistics. It has to be better than what currently exists. And anybody can build an airport, and but that's not the key. The key is the logistics. And I want to mention something from my past experience. I've seen how the industry has changed in the last 30 years. And I'm going to pick 30 years because just to pick 1990 as a point of reference. But back then, 1990, the product that was arriving, this is what I saw on the freighters that we were operating. Was basically 4 or 5 different box types, and that was it. There was basically boxes of roses, carnations, pom-poms, whatever variety, in full boxes, half, 1/4. Then the 1/8 size box came in, and so forth. But bouquets and value was very insignificant, if anything. And back then, the product was consigned to wholesalers in Miami. The retailers and supermarkets were insignificant back then. They're practically non-existent. So boxes arrived, at the airport, they were cleared, and then they would be taken to facilities off the airport, and then they started their wholesale activity, and then from there was shipped all over the country. Well, if you look at the process 30 years later, the industry has changed dramatically. Now it's over 75% of the product is sold through the retailers. You have the value-added product. You have a lot of bouquets and value-added product arriving. 30 years ago, it was mostly on consignment. So product was arriving here, nobody knew where it was going to get sold, who was going to buy it. Now most of it is pre-sold. It's produced to the customer's needs. So when it arrives here in Miami, they know where it's going. They know when it has to be there and where it has to go. But the only thing that hasn't changed is the way it's handled. It's just exactly the same thing. Very little change. It arrives, it gets cleared, and then they take it off the airport. They store it in these very nice facilities, and then it stays there a day or two, and then it gets shipped. And that is very expensive, extremely expensive. I would say that the only change that I have seen is that some have decided to outsource some of that, but there's only so much that has been done. So, but overall, it hasn't. It really hasn't changed, and it hasn't changed because it can't. You can't do this at MIA Airport because you have, first of all, you don't have enough space. The space that is there is inadequate. It's very costly versus what exists off the airport. And then you have here in Miami a labor element, which is called the living wage. It's an ordinance. So it makes the labor rate on the airport 40% more expensive than off the airport, that let's say right across the street from the airport. So all these things you can't do this very efficient process that I've described at MIA. There have been some people that have basically a product that arrives and that it's transshipped immediately. Well, they keep it on the airport 24 hours and then they ship it straight, sort of like a cross-dock operation, but that's about it. And there's only very few doing that. So that's the part that hasn't changed. And what I have seen also is that the industry kills for 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cent variation when the air cargo rates increase because fuel increase. It was like the world falling apart, and the industry always killed for that 1 or 2 cents. But as I've told them, nobody pays attention to the handling. The handling is many times more expensive than that 1 or 2 cents, the impact, and they really haven't paid that much attention. So this is now, of course, they're starting to listen and look at this, and see that this could be a difference, a very important difference for the industry, and that it can significantly improve shelf life, which is part of the efficiency. So here's these are some of the things that we've been focusing on. Like I said, it's an opportunity to design something from scratch, and we've been working now for all these years with many of the most important players in the industry to get them engaged and tell us what we need to do. What is it that we need to design? And we've been having some engagements with them to design facilities, and that's I'll show that a little bit later. But we've gotten a lot of important feedback and suggestions from them. So like I say here at the end, it's once in a generation opportunity for the stakeholders in the industry to reshape the supply chain in the United States. One of the things let me just go here, continue the next one. So here's just the 85 miles north. As what we found out when we doing the process with the FAA, the flight time and taxi time is less than coming to MIA. That is very important. When you have airplanes that can cost $15,000, $16,000 an hour, if you take 5-10 minutes off flight time, it becomes thousands of dollars, and you multiply that date for 30 days in the month and 12 months of the year, becomes millions of dollars. So for the airlines, it is very important. And the fact that the flight time is a little bit is less, and the taxi time is less, allows you to put a little bit more cargo on the airplane. So the AA is a custom-built cargo dedicated to logistics hub. The key, logistics. This is what the key is. And having everybody under one roof, we think that we can get everything clear in no more than 4 hours. Versus 8, 12, 15, depending on the manpower of APHIS, the USA APHIS in Miami right now, since they have to go to so many different locations. There'll be ample storage for the peak holiday periods. In Miami, come Valentine's and Mother's Day, it's chaotic because there's not enough cooler space. So we will have enough space designed for it. The airport, as I mentioned, is in the perishable clearance center. I'll have a different presentation on that. You'll see it later, but I'll show you something a little more detailed based on the input that we've been receiving. It's based on the feedback that we've received from the users. And they will be the drivers, they'll be the users. They won't be a second-class citizen like they currently are at a commercial airport where everything is passenger, 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 and cargo is sort of like an afterthought. The facilities we have, there will be, the concept is that AA will provide the coolers, the warehouses and the coolers, and it's going to be based on a throughput fee. In other words, the customer will not have to make a large capital, the users, the importers that is, or any tenant there won't have to make the investment in the coolers because we'll provide that. And the model will work based on a throughput. In other words, for every pound, every box that goes in, there'll be a charge, and that will cover that. So there's no significant capital expenditure from a user standpoint. The location is wonderful. It's Route 27, which is a 4-lane highway. It's a major north-south artery in Florida. It's 85 miles north of Miami. From here on, it's highway completely, and it ends basically just north of Orlando, and then there it connects with. 27 goes up to the Georgia border, but just north of Orlando, it connects with other major arteries, highways. So either or. It currently has a significant truck traffic. People are avoiding Interstate 95, truckers avoiding Interstate 95, and to a lesser extent the Florida Turnpike. So in the future, will play an even greater role as the state grows. I mentioned the flight and taxi time, and again, the design is to get the product in and out as quickly as possible. Shelf life, we're aware of the shelf life. I want to mention something also. When we engaged some of the users here, and also currently, we brought in the MIT Center for Transportation and Logistics, MIT, the university. They have this center, which is very well known, and they have 3 satellite offices. They have one in Malaysia. That's a recent one. The first one is in Zaragoza, Spain, and the second one is in Bogota. MIT was the lead consultant when they built a center in Europe called Plaza in Zaragoza. Zaragoza Airport was the shuttle alternate landing site in case there was an emergency after blast off. That was never used, but there's a magnificent runway. So the city of Zaragoza took it over, in about 20 years ago or so, or 15 years ago, excuse me, they converted that. into a logistics center, and they brought in MIT to do this for them. And now it's been enormously successful, and they advertise themselves of being the largest integrated logistics center in Europe. So it has rail, ocean, air, of course, and of course truck in one location. You've got the major Fortune 500 companies there. There's just one customer, which is an anchor tenant there, is a company called Inditex. You'll know it as the Sarah fast fashion, Sarah fashion stores. Well, they started with 1 million square feet. Now they're over 2 million, and that's their hub, their distribution hub, or one of their major distribution hubs. And so flights from Asia, they arrive there, and then flights from there to all over the world depart. So we brought them in for this, and they've been helping us in this project. And specifically, the area that they've been working on is to show the users in Miami, the importers, wholesalers, airlines, truckers, that the operating model A is less expensive than Miami, and that is key, because it can't be more expensive. It has to be less expensive. So we know that. So we brought them in to have a third-party independent to do this for us, and it's an ongoing effort because we're still engaged with some other potential tenants. So we have to show them. So they give us their information, the cost information, and MIT Logica. They plug it in the model that was developed, and it shows the comparison. So that's been an ongoing process. We brought them in about 3 years ago. It did an initial part, and now we continue to use them as we have new parties that are interested. So again, costs will be lowered. It will have plenty of space to grow in the future. It's closer to market because you avoid all the traffic in Miami. Labor costs are 20% lower in Clewiston. Clewiston is where Everglades is located. This the town of Clewiston. So we know all these things, and these are all the things that help make it more expensive. So here we have the cost advantage over Miami. So we think that by 2023 it'll be even more it'll be even more efficient than it is today. Miami will continue to get congested, and even though there may be some respite right now because of the whole COVID impact on passengers, the passenger traffic is going to come back to its pre-COVID levels in maybe 2 years, maybe 3, but it's going to come back by the time AA is ready, and we're shooting for 2.5, maybe 3 years. It's still going to be relevant. It's not, the need is not going to disappear because of what's currently happening. If anything, I think it's going to have even more relevance because I think people are going to look for ways to minimize their investment in non-productive areas and non-core activities. And I think logistics is one of those. So this is the trucking congestion in Miami. This is all official data from various American Trucking Association and the US DOT. Then here's the design. I just want to show you what the design is. It looks like. Like I mentioned, this is an existing airport. It's there. The airport is there, and it has one runway, which is right here. Let's see if I can point out. This is the existing runway. That's going to remain there, and this is the new runway, 10,000 feet. And this runway will be able to handle any type of airplane that you want to bring in. You can bring in an A380 if you want, 747, of course. And that's long enough for, it's wide and long enough to handle it, and long enough to be able to fly from there to long haul flights into deep South America, which is what it's designed for. So the airplane lands, and then you have right here, in this area here, and it's marked in blue, it explains what some of the facilities are, how the actual facility is like. And so the airplane parks right in front. It's unloaded and immediately goes into the cooler in what we call the perishable clearance center. So that PCC has USDA, APHIS, TSA, all the agencies are going to be there, coolers, and there'll be some users that'll also be there. So everything is under one roof. This process we know that it's going to save probably around 24 hours. So imagine that in shelf life, not only in gaining one day, but also the cold storage process. It couldn't be better. So you're not going to have the exposure to temperature fluctuation, which is so damaging that you currently have because the way the facilities are. The airplane in Miami arrives, and sometimes you have to move the cargo 10, 15, 20 minutes. And if it comes in a passenger flight in the belly, it's an hour, at least an hour from the passenger terminal to the cargo facilities in Miami from the moment the airplane arrives, under the best of circumstances. So this is the basic design, and I want to highlight something which is here is identified as 9 on the chart. These are facilities for importers, wholesalers, anybody who wants to have a presence at the airport, that they want to have some activity. There are going to be facilities right in front of the building. Those are standalone facilities, and it can be dry, it could be cooler, it could be anything. And even though this design that you see here, this is what was submitted to the FAA, but we've taken this design and we've improved it based on the feedback that we've gotten. And this facility for the warehouse and distribution center is going to be connected to the PCC. So the cold chain process will not be interrupted, and it'll be connected to the building. The design is different, so I'll show that a little bit later. But this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're thinking about. Again, this is just to show that you've got the other facilities, these ones with the blue roof here. But the way this is drawn this way is just to highlight that you have these on-airport warehousing and distribution center, which is right in front of the perishable clearance center. Again, these are some of the concepts. So you see the airplane arrives at 1, it parks, head in, it's offloaded, and it goes straight into the building. You see the perishable clearance cargo center, perishable cargo clearance center. That's where USDA and APHIS is. And then you'll see the other warehouses that I mentioned, distribution centers, connected with it. There's a line that connects them, and that's just to indicate that there's a transfer, that the cold chain process is not interrupted, and it was simply drawn that way at that moment, just to highlight that we're going to have a design that addresses that, even though the actual design is a little bit different than what you see here, but it accomplishes exactly that. So this is the PCC in sort of some more detail. So again, you see the cargo comes in 1, and it gets processed, inspected, and then you have some customers, very large customers, saying, I need a module there. I want to have my own module. So we have that capability. So you see that we've sort of identified, I think it's what, 4 or 5, we got 6 drawn here, different modules. And these modules could be made any size that the customer needs. And we'll put in the latest technology. There'll also be a fumigation chamber. If product needs fumigation, this is more it's going to be used more for some fruit and veggies than the flowers, but the flowers do use them occasionally. So it's there. You'll see that on one of the corners, I think over here. Yeah, the fumigation center. And then here's some of the highlights. It's going to increase perishable shelf life. No question about it. More efficient. It's going to improve the whole process. And it can grow. It's set to grow for the future. You're not going to have any space limitations because there's abundant land there. There's practically nothing there. The only thing that's out enclosed in is sugarcane. That's it. So we have it can handle the peaks, as I mentioned. Transportation costs are going to be less. So again, product can be shipped directly to customers via the PCC. On-site fumigation will be available. Logistics providers will be in the same location as the importers. AIA is 100 miles closer to end customers, so anybody in the US, you're going to be 100 miles closer at AIA than you currently are in Miami without the congestion and all the issues that you have in Miami. Building leases are significantly less than Miami. The throughput fee that I mentioned includes space and refrigeration. So somebody comes in and needs a space, we will build the coolers for them. So there's no capex from the user standpoint, no significant capex. We have some electricity is lower, labor rates are lower, and then you have some importers who currently negotiate a net rates with the airlines. Net rate defined as I'll pay you to transfer my cargo from point A to the ramp at Miami International, and I'll pick it at the ramp and I'll take it someplace that I process my cargo. So they're getting a discount from the airline. You'll be able to do the same here at AIA. So to operate the PCC, we did an RFP process, and we had many of the very well-known established companies in Miami that provide this service and handle these facilities, among them Swissport, Worldwide Flight Services, and others. And we went through a 6-month process, and Worldwide Flight Services, which is the largest cargo handling operation in MIA, was selected to operate the facility. So they know how to operate coolers, they know how to handle flowers and perishables. So they've been selected. So AFPort is not going to run that. AFPort just runs the airport. The facility is going to be run. The perishable clearance center, not the secondary, not the other warehouses. Those are up to what the customer wants. So they want to bring their own staff in. If they want to outsource it, that's fine. So here's a team involved in development. Marilyn, she used to run the American Airlines here in Miami at run the airport operations. So she has an enormous experience with the airlines, and of course myself. And I'd like to switch now to the other presentation that I have. Okay. Is it up there, Cindy? Hang on.
I think if you close this one out, if you exit out And then, yeah, then bring up your other one.
Yeah. There it is. Can you see it?
That's a good one. Not yet.
You there?
Yep.
Okay. I mentioned earlier that we did what we call a charrette, a design charrette that we did last year. And we invited some of the most important actors here in Miami, among them airlines, truckers, importers in the floral and veggies, seafood. And we showed them some of the design. And this has been an ongoing process with them because we started this with them about 6-7 years ago when we did the benefit cost analysis for the FAA, and they provided data.
Again, Hernan, hit your share screen again. It popped off.
Oh, it popped off.
Yeah. Try to hit it again.
Okay, let me see. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. So as I mentioned, we did this charrette last year, and it was an ongoing process. We started with them many years ago when we did the BCC for the benefit cost analysis for the FAA, and they provided a lot of important data. So we've been asking them, tell us what you need. What would you like to see? This is a blank sheet of paper. How would you design it? And these are some of the things that the result of that are these conceptual designs that you see here. And again, you'll see the airplane docking in, nose in, and then you have that in yellow, that little thing in yellow here, that's where you have the PCC, and then you have all the other facilities there that are connected. So it goes into the PCC, and then if it has to be transferred to other modules in here, it's done connected without losing the cold storage integrity. So this is a more refined design of the center. So you'll see the aircraft apron, and then you have the different modules. In here. So we can have a mix of flowers, fruits and veggies. They're completely separated. There's no commingling whatsoever. So based on what the customers need. These are some of the warehouse spaces, some of the office spaces that for customs. And this is part of an existing. This is of course at the Everglades at the new development, but something is being designed right now for them, so they can get started being designated as port of entry. The idea is to have the improvements in the existing building in the next 8 months, so they can start actually operating. So again, this is the space. You see the docks. So.
Awesome.
So what are the next steps? So just to give you where we are now, we're engaging with the FAA. We continue to engage with them to finish the. We have to secure some agreements for users to be at AIA in 2.5-3 years when it's operational, and we have to go back to the FAA and show them that this is that there is sufficient industry support. They've seen it already because in one of the meetings that we had with the FAA, where the acting administrator was here at AIA, and we invited a series of potential users, and they went there and they expressed their their support for the project, and they explain why. So they know that, but we have to go back with documented, and we have to come up with agreements with them, and that's the part that we're working on actively right now. That is also a challenge because this is a completely different way of handling the product versus what is currently and has traditionally existed in Miami. So you're changing something, and that in itself is a challenge. That is a challenge by itself. But when people see the savings and they start thinking in the future, then of course it opens their eyes, and it's a new world. So we're getting people to focus on that, and we've had quite a bit of success in that aspect. As I said, the idea is that it'd be ready in 2.5 years, 3 years. The impact of COVID-19, I think, initially it has had some impact in slowing the process down, simply because it's been more difficult to engage everybody. And when the country shut down in March, of course, everybody in the industry, in the floral industry, they didn't know what was going to happen but fortunately things started responding very quickly. But at the beginning, everybody was not focused on anything but that, obviously, which is perfectly understandable. And then of course the IFE was also, they were also handling, they've got bigger issues to attend to, just the whole scenario of the airlines in the U.S. and the impact this has had on the aviation business has been monumental. So of course they've had their attention on that. So it has slowed it a little bit, but things are started coming back to some normality. And like I said earlier, I think the COVID situation, I think it's going to help this project, because we had one player in Miami when this thing was getting underway in late March, said, you know, with all this COVID, it has made me think, do I really need all these facilities that I have here? Is there a way for me to do things better? I got to look at this thing. I got to consider this now. And that was a spontaneous remark that he made. So people are thinking of different ways of doing things, and we think that AIA can offer that opportunity, and just provide a better solution than what currently exists. So this is no different than what exists in let's say in the case of Europe, another airport. In the case of Europe, freighters that go into London, they can't go to Heathrow because there's no space, Heathrow being the main airport. They have difficulty going in Gatwick. Gatwick already basically has no cargo facility, so you can't go there. They used to be, so now they're going to Stansted Airport. Stansted is about 1.5 hours, 2 hours from London, because there's just no capacity. And that's just London. And the same thing happens in Frankfurt and in other parts of Europe, that it becomes so congestion. And there the distances are 2 hours, 3 hours, much more than what AIA is. So it's not different from as ways of addressing the growth that Miami and the need that Miami is going to need. So thank you very much. And I'll be happy to, I'm available. Anybody who wants to call me, my phone numbers are there, emails, and I'm available anytime, and I'll be happy to explain more. And if you want a tour of AIA, we can also arrange that at the right moment, whenever you're ready. So thank you, and I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and that your business continues to recover. And once again, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hernan, for all this great information. And I know when Hernan and I first met, I was amazed that all of this was going on behind the scenes. And if you're a buyer, you know what a nail biter it is during all of the major holidays. Is our product, has it arrived? Has it been received, inspected? Is there gridlock in Miami? And this is going to be such a welcomed opportunity for us as a buyer, but also behind the scenes, many of the suppliers that we all know and love have been in communication with Hernan, have looked at blueprints, and they're looking at this as part of their future as well. So, and especially I want to mention that one thing that COVID has done is really made us look at e-commerce a little bit more closely and online selling. And so all of these things that we're looking at for the future of our industry, this really plays into that as well. So thank you, Hernan, again, for all this great information. And guys, if you're listening to this, please look online. And we have 6 additional educational seminars that you have to really watch, all brand new information, just like what you saw just now. We have ever popular Glenna Hecht is back with us. So you'll be able to listen to her seminar, brand new, and you know how lively she is. So we look forward to hearing that. And all the way up to the PhD director of Kent State Fashion School is going to talk to us about color, fabric, texture, design, and that's phenomenal as well, and plus 4 others. So please don't miss any of those. And again, thank you, Hernan. And on behalf of International Floriculture Expo, Cindy Hanauer, Hernan Galindo signing out. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll mention one thing, and that was why these other airports